We've got lots of changes on the way this February with different kinds of weather patterns that are going to develop throughout the month, and it starts with this feisty storm system exiting the west and eventually riding the southern quarter of the United States. Later in the month, though, could we see an active cold finish? In this video, I've got the details on everything you need to know from what's now to what's next right here. Apps in this video from Weather Bell, link in the description. Thank you so much for joining me here on One Nation Weather. If you enjoy the rest of this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button for accurate, easy to understand, and passionate forecasts. Now, you're taking a brief look at your January 31st hazards map here in the evening. Got a lot about to hit the west coast, as you can see there. We've got winter weather alerts in those blues, purples, and pinks there. The pinks indicating winter storm warnings up there, and high elevations of California and Nevada, as well as southern Utah. We've got flash flood alerts as well along the California coastline, and some high wind warnings surrounding places like San Francisco with topography, especially there, as well as into northern California and southern Oregon. As you can see, as we go into this evening and into the overnight hours and into our Thursday morning here, you can see very heavy rain, as well as some high elevation snowfall hitting California, especially the northern part of the state, so be ready for this. This is some very heavy rainfall, flood concerns. Obviously, the mountain topography could cause those mudslide, those landslide concerns that we get there as well. You can see as we make our way into the afternoon hours of our Thursday. By the way, if you're looking for the rest of the February forecast, skip ahead a couple more minutes into the video. You can see here, as we go through our Thursday and into our Friday, we continue to see this precip continue over parts of the west. Some of this heavy at times, even into parts of Nevada, the Four Corners up to Idaho. Some of this snow quite heavy, low elevation, light to moderate rain as well as we make our way Thursday and into our Friday. We get a little second surge of some energy there into northern California into our Friday afternoon. That could bring a little bit more heavy snowfall to the Sierras. You can see other parts of Idaho and the high elevations of central Idaho, central Utah, and then up there into the Rockies as well, getting in on some snowfall into this weekend as well. And as this low pressure system kind of banks up against our blocking high that's over the northern plains, that's going to kind of elongate the system and prolong our snow event there into high elevations of Idaho, western Montana, on there into the Rockies as well. I mean, you can see that's still going on into our Sunday afternoon to some extent over that region. Here's your rainfall through Saturday according to the National Digital Forecast Database, and again, most of this falling in the very near term here over California. Pretty much if you're along the coastline, expect at least an inch to an inch and a half of rainfall, but up there in high elevations of California as well as along the immediate northwestern California coastline, some spots picking up close to 3 to 6 inches of rain, maybe some locally higher amounts. I'd be worried about the flooding there. Feet of snow in the Sierra Nevada range, and then you can see find your high elevation location here across the rest of the Mountain West, but it looks like most of Idaho, Montana, and western parts of Wyoming and Colorado will be cashing in on high elevation, very decent snowfall with a foot plus in many communities. Now let's time out the rest of the storm across other parts of the country here, because once we get past our, say, Friday afternoon, this piece of energy is going to eject out into the rest of the plains, and as we go Friday night, we could see some showers and storms kind of try to develop here over parts of the south central plains. You can see a couple areas of low pressure, one up here into parts of Montana and Wyoming. That's the one bringing the snow to the Mountain West there. The second one that just starts developing over the plains is going to be the one to carry this the rest of the way, and also brings that chance for maybe an isolated severe shower or thunderstorm over parts of Texas and southern Oklahoma there as we go Friday night and into our Saturday. Into our Saturday through the day, eastern Oklahoma and eastern Texas should watch out for that flooding and maybe low-end severe weather potential. That continues into the Arklatex Saturday night into Sunday as we get some pretty hefty rain to be pushing through parts of Louisiana and Arkansas. Obviously, you would normally expect it to move northeast like I just drew with those arrows, but because we have blocking high pressure sitting up here over parts of the Great Lakes region, that again keeps that snow stuck back up there into the Mountain West, and also keeps this rain kind of flattening out and sinking under it there over the southeastern United States. So a pretty decent rain event here through parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, even into South Carolina as well. We're not really worried about snow with this anymore. We've got people still looking at random models and trying to show that this is going to be a snowstorm. This is not a snowstorm, everyone. And unless this can interact with this polar jet stream that is way further north than initially expected, then this is a no-go for snow over parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the East Coast in general, which is what it's looking like is going to happen at this point. Models continue to shift away from a snow event with that. But again, we'll watch Friday afternoon for marginally severe weather over parts of central Texas. And again, that maybe could shift into parts of the Arklatex and Mississippi as we go into our Saturday. This storm not looking to be a major severe weather maker, but again, we have to continue to watch the threats that could develop out of it, including the rainfall up there into parts of Nebraska and Kansas. We could watch a couple of inches of rainfall there. Locally high amounts there, closer to 4 inches. Same goes there there over some zones of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi. And again, I think the rain is going to be a little bit hard to predict out of this system, but just kind of get the overall consensus here that there are going to be a lot of higher totals that we get. And it's just not quite sure exactly where in the south and southeast that's going to be yet. But what I can tell you is that over parts of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, all the way into the Great Lakes region, very dry in the near term. And that's as this ridging develops, the 6 to 10 day temperature probability outlook taking us through the 6th through the 10th. February showing much warmer than average temperatures indicated by those maroons over the north central. Only places cooler than average, Florida and the west coast during that time frame. And look at this, the west coast continuing to be slammed by precipitation. Some of that ejecting on out into the plains during that same time frame. Again, February 6th through 10th. Looks like in that time frame, though, it's going to be a little bit drier than average along the east coast. Now, all this precipitation and cool air in the west eventually, kind of puts my eyes on something, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But here's that temperature anomaly tracking with the European model, and again, you can see as we make our way through the rest of this week, it is just much warmer than average over the pretty much the vast majority of the north central United States. 10, 15, 20 plus degrees above average over this region. You can see that continuing to bubble up as we make our way through Sunday, February 4th. The only areas cooler than average are those areas being affected by rain, and again, this is not cooler than average enough to produce any sort of snowfall. Now, behind this little system that we get next week into parts of the southeast, of course, the one sinking under this ridging that I'm circling right now, still a little cooler than average there, but what I want you to notice is the sharp contrast between that ridging bringing it 20 to 30 degrees above average over the north central towards the end of next week, and the cold air that's going to bring it, say, 15, 20 degrees below average into the mountain west by the time we go the 8th, 10th, and the 8th through the 10th, I should say. And then eventually, notice how you kind of see those reds try to fade on off with a little sharp contrast towards the east. Could this be a low-pressure system trying to get indicated to pull this colder air out of the mountain west here and then eventually eastward? So we'll have to watch that very closely. It does look like sometime around the mid-month, probably 10th through the 15th time frame, we will begin to see that cold air slide eastward slowly but surely. Again, you can see we're looking at low-pressure probability here. It's already looking like with the European ensembles, there is likelihood that another storm that's going to hit California and the coastline of the west there is going to make its way on out here, bringing maybe some snow into the mountain west by the time we go the 7th and 8th of February, maybe getting some rain going into that same time frame here over parts of the south central plains, maybe on over there as well into parts of the Midwest as that low heads on up there through the upper Midwest. Again, that's sometime the 9th through the 11th. But also notice we get this another system as we head, say, towards the 12th, at least 20 to 30% probabilities already of a low in the Great Lakes at that time. Some point here during that time frame, I do think cold air is going to spill in, and it's probably with that one that would be in the Great Lakes around the 12th, or maybe even another one after that. So it's going to take a little while for this warm air to give way here. And we're not looking at an entire month of February colder than average across the entire country. But what we do see here is this cold air that's locked up the 5th through the 12th there over the west. Look at how this starts spreading in by the time we go towards the 16th of February here. Colder than average air. This is the past 7 days anomaly. It's going to be sharing, a lot of cool air over there in the southwestern United States. But by the time we go to the 14th through the 21st, this is that range you're looking at right now. Looks like we're going to see that cold air head eastward. And again, I think that's going to be with some storm that hits right around the middle of the month. And once that does hit, that could bring that cooler air eastward. But another thing with this is there's still going to be enough moisture in place to make this a snowstorm situation. It does look like the high pressure will begin to return and warm things up over the north central. But what you notice towards the end of the month, we remain cooler than average over the eastern United States. This could be what we need to, at some point, even if it is drier than average, kind of salvage a snowstorm just because it's colder than average for such an extended period of time. And that, looking into March even, Euro ensembles continuing to show cooler than average air, at least by a little bit, over a lot of the country into that time frame. But again, this comes with a little bit of a cost here if you live into parts of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, over here into the Northeast. You can see all that dry air in place. Unless you're there in the Southwest and the far southeastern parts of the United States, as well as maybe into the plains, you're pretty much looking negative in terms of precipitation anomalies for February, which means that overall there's going to be less precipitation moving through. Probably means a lot of that cold air that moves in, say mid to late month possibly, that would be dry air. Here's the monthly temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, again indicating warmer than average conditions over the north central, more likely to be closer to normal or a little bit below average over southern corridor and the far eastern parts of the United States. And then as we take a look at that Monthly precipitation outlook for February. Again, it's pretty similar zones to what we just saw with those EPS ensembles. They're close to this, or this was, the extended Euro, I should say as well. Down there closer to the southwest United States, on up there into the high plains, and then on down along the southern quarter. That's where the precipitation's above average, but very typical of El Nino, Pacific Northwest. Below average in terms of precipitation, as well as on up there into parts of the Great Lakes. So again, we kind of have to watch the pattern. It looks like it'll turn colder later in February, but it might come with that drier air. So please hit that subscribe button. Here's the credits on screen right now. That's it for this video. Weather Bell trial in the description.